What's up, fam? All you podcast listeners out there, no matter where you're listening, we're excited to be back in the studio. It's your boy T Deal on the mic, and I have the one, the only Alex Cottingham. How you doing, sir?
Trevor, who the heck calls you T Deal? Let's be real.
Dude, a lot of people.
No one does.
You've
No
only
one
known me for
does.
like 1 year, like not even a year yet.
Please name 3 people that call you T Deal.
You're putting me on the spot, and I'm not good under pressure.
See, it's true.
No, it is. I swear, some people call me T Deal.
Sweet teas. Yeah, I'm happy.
I can think of people at the AJGA, one of my former employers, who call me T Deal. Nathan Nuttrat, to give one example, is a good friend of mine. Anyway, some guys on my Alta team call me T Deal. Some people call me T. Some Sweet T. Aaron calls me T Dizzy. No, I'm kidding. She didn't call me T Dizzy.
Anyways, Trevor, whatever name you go by, thanks for having me. What the heck are we talking about today?
That's a great question, Alex. Today we are diving into a 3-part mini-series. That's right, 3-part mini-series, not a large series, mini. So we're going to be digging into the first part of this series, and it really continues with some of the similar conversations we've been having, Alex, in terms of God's design for our health. And as we like to say here at Holo Health, that our health is made up of our body, mind, and soul, and that we are more than just physical. When it comes to our life and our health and the things that we need to steward, we have to understand that reality, that truth. And so today we are going to be unpacking the first part of this mini series, and it's God's design for our body. And so, Alex, I'd love for you to kick the episode off and just kind of give a brief foundation and outline of what we have been talking about and what we believe to be God's design for our body.
So, Trevor, we're in this kind of like season right now of uncovering how God designed us to be truly healthy, because he made us to live life to the fullest, and that's what we want to do. We want to live life with joy and peace and strength and vitality, not with busyness and stress and depression and anxiety, because that's not life to the full in any means. So when we take a look and we really center our business around body, mind, soul, of being healthy in every area, today we're going to look at just the body and how God designed that, and that when we align our behaviors with what God designed, we can fulfill our ultimate purpose, which is to glorify him, to live healthy lives, to become made more in the image of Christ. So that's what we're doing. And simply put, when we're talking about the body, we're talking about the part of us that we can tangibly see, right? It's the freckles on our face, the hair on our skin. It's the part of us that interacts with the material world. It's we see, we feel, we smell, we taste with our body. Everyone knows what the body is. I'm not going to insult your intelligence, but here's why it's important that we start talking about true health and God's design of it versus what culture kind of preaches. Because when it comes to culture, our culture obsesses over the body. Because with the help of social media, movies, magazines, pop music, Netflix, even places like the beach, think about it, you go to the beach, the direction of the cultural undertow is to idolize and glamorize the ideal body. Everyone wants the perfect body. You know, it's the skinnier, smaller, lose the weight at all costs version. Or for us men, it's the toned, bigger muscle, lose the gut version of health. But what happens is, when people aren't meeting this cultural standard of ideal, which they consider healthy, we start to dislike the body. We view it with discontentment at best and disgust at worst, but that's not the design. And we start to have this very poor relationship with our body, not respecting what God has given us. And we start to turn health in context of our body more towards image manipulation rather than expressing the freedom that God has given us. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of unpack 3 of like the foundational ways God designed the body so that we can start to align a healthier view by respecting what God has given us. Because it literally says in the scriptures that, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, that the Spirit literally dwells within us, so that when we not only become healthier physically, but we are also stewarding and respecting this temple that the Spirit dwells in with great honor. So that's kind of where we're going at. So we don't want to follow the cultural undertow of disliking or hating our body, but really aligning ourselves with the foundational habits so that we can express our health with the freedom that Christ has given us. Does that make sense? Sorry, that was kind of a lot.
No, it was good. It lays a really good foundation. And I just have some general questions that I think will be really good for the listeners to kind of hear us unpack before we step into one, two, three of how God designed our bodies. And so, I think the first question would be, Alex, is man, like I want to look good, right? Like I want to exercise, and I would like to be in shape and look good in the mirror, right? That's something that I want to do. Is it wrong for me to want to do that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I would even argue that the abundant life found in Christ when we steward our mind and soul, but specifically our body, is found in a relationship with Christ when we're pursuing true health. And here's why. When we're pursuing a truly healthy life, first, that's our priority. Our ideal weight will follow. But when we have that reverse and we pursue our ideal weight first through image manipulation, through diets, through these 21-day burn boot camps, that we're going to try to lose 21 pounds in 21 days and focusing on our ideal image rather than our true health, we're never going to get there. So that's a longing we all have. We want to look good and feel good because we want to be good stewards of what God has given us. But the problem is, how do we get there? And some of the presuppositions that we need to knock down in that pursuit, that's what we're going to kind of talk about. But no, absolutely. It's not bad at all. We should all want to look good and feel good in the mirror because we are stewarding this body. This is on loan from God. We don't take it when we die. Like when we die, our spirit goes to heaven and our body lays in the ground or is burned in the ashes. Like we want to be the best stewards of this body as possible.
No, that's good. I appreciate you providing that context. I feel a little bit better about wanting to look good now.
Trevor, you always look good.
I appreciate that. Mood and energy are high, folks. Alex, just a quick aside. That's something that Alex and I like to say. I started it because it seemed like mood and energy were low one day when we were working together.
Yep.
And so I just kind of screamed that in a Starbucks, and immediately mood and energy were brought to high levels.
And for
And so
whatever
that's what this
reason, it's just stuck.
it has stuck. A lot of little phrases like that stick. Anyways, this podcast mood and energy is super high. Let's talk about those three main ways that God designed our body. Alex, hit us with the first one.
Okay. Number one, God designed us to sleep well. If you are familiar with previous episodes with the first book that we talk about as far as the 7 habits of health, the Holo State, living this truly healthy life, you will realize that this is habit number one. This is foundational to everything, that sleep impacts every single thing we do. And underneath this sleeping umbrella, we're also going to add in resting wells. And we're going to talk about the difference between sleeping well and resting well. But when it comes to sleeping well, what we're talking about is sufficiently getting enough sleep each night to sustain us during the day so that we can pursue a truly healthy lifestyle so that we can best steward our bodies. Okay. If we are not sleeping well, it impacts everything. It's a keystone habit. So that's why, number one, God designed us to sleep well. And in these three foundational things, and number one being God designed us to sleep well, we are going to take a deep dive, a glance, a case study through Genesis. It's the first chapter in the Bible on how God created humanity, created the animals, created the laws of physics, created the earth. And literally in Genesis, it said, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that there was light, and it was good. He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night, and there was evening and there was morning, the first day. So literally the first day of earth, God said, okay, there's a time that we are on and there's a time that we are off. There's a natural rhythm in our souls for us to be on, and then when we're off, we sleep. So habit number one is sleep well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And, I mean, most of our listeners are going to know that that is a big part of what we preach and teach at Hello Health. Like you said, it's a keystone habit. And I just want to encourage people, and, it'll be a later episode where we specifically can revisit and truly, really unpack some of these things that Alex shares, but another time, another place. The point that I want to share here before we transition to number two, Alex, is we're not encouraging this robotic lifestyle where your only focus is to sleep well. Like we say, your health is attention to manage. That includes sleeping well. Some nights you'll be able to get more, some nights you will get less. That's the nature of the business, but it's looking to optimize. And what I believe optimization is to look at those days that you can set yourself up well to sleep well, to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. For example, quick example, I'm typically able to do this most every single weeknight. Last night I had a fantasy football draft, went with some boys, cultivated some community, had some laughs, got a pretty solid team that are ready to win the league. And I got back a little bit later and went to sleep a little bit later. That's just how some days are, some nights are. So I think optimization and tension to manage, not robotic and restrictive lifestyle.
Well said, Trevor. Um, Before we move on to number two, I just wanted to hit the other side of the coin because when we're talking about sleeping well, it is attention to manage. We don't want it to dictate our lives, but we do want it to be number one. It's very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is resting well. The whole coin is basically living in a way that can help, living in a way today that will help us thrive tomorrow. Because if we are not sleeping well, it's going to catch up to us on the weekends. We're going to get just terrible mood. Energy and high are going to be super low. But if we
Mood.
don't rest well, that's a perfect recipe for burnout. And
Yeah.
our soul is just going to be not who God designed us to be. Okay. When we're
Yeah.
talking about resting well, we're talking about things like margin and breathing room and Sabbath and cadence and making the most important things the most important things. So just
Mm-hmm.
as much as we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep over on this side, we need to be resting well and operating at a pace that can sustain us over here. That's number one. That's how God designed us. And he literally designed us that way. So the bottom line, we need to be intentional about sleeping well and resting well because that's going to fuel us today. That can help us thrive tomorrow. We need to be intentional about it. So that's the last thing I would say about number one.
That's awesome. If you're listening to this, maybe in the office, if you're in the car, don't do this. Maybe you can do it later. But I would either click pause or go to your browser and type in hurry sickness and then come back to hurry sickness later and look a little bit further into it. Maybe we do a podcast episode later on it. But it really kind of digs deeper into what Alex is talking about, sleeping and resting well, and scripturally how we are called to live a life of margin and rest to be able to live a life of abundance. John 10:10. All right, Alex, that was a really thorough examination of part one for God's design for the body. What is the second way that God designed our body?
Number two, God designed us to eat clean. Okay. So we just talked about the cadence and the pace of life, that to sustain us each and every day, we need to sleep well and rest well. Number two is now God has established not just the rhythm for humans to operate, sleeping well and resting well, but he also provided the necessary means to sustain this rhythm. Okay. And that's called food. It's called eating clean. Genesis, our case study, literally says, Then God said, I give you every seed bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. This will be yours for food. That is a direct quote from Genesis 1. So when we talk about food, I want you to think more sweet potatoes and less sweet and lows, more greens and less grains, more naturally occurring and less artificially made. Okay. These are the things that God naturally made for us to consume as food, as fuel. These are the things that when we eat, we don't feel bloated and like stuffed and just blah afterwards, but we're like, oh, hey, that was a good meal and I feel good afterwards. We've all been there. Here's the thing though, when I say this, you might be thinking, or somebody might be thinking, okay, does that mean that I can only eat vegan? Like I'm only eating plants and fruits? Like I'm not cutting up my steaks. I'm not cutting up my sweets. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like we said, health is attention to manage. We go for 80% and 20%, 80% of what we should eat, 20% of what we could eat, just because we're living with margin. But the more nutrient dense foods we can eat, because God designed our body to eat those, the more health we will endure and the more freedom we'll have down the road. So habit number two is eat clean.
Yeah, and I love the way you kind of mentioned that 80/20, Alex. And we talked about it before, but what I really want to stress to each of the listeners is sustainability. I think
Yes.
one thing that comes with eating clean specifically when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to diet, most people think restriction, and that's the last thing I want to encourage you towards. If you live a restrictive lifestyle when it comes to your diet, it's going to lead to shame, it's going to lead to guilt, it's going to lead to frustration. And I
Yes.
think not, I think I know none of those things have a place in a John 10:10 abundant life that God
Right.
has for you.
Right.
And so when Alex says your body is designed by God to have and to benefit from these specific macro and micronutrients from clean, whole, real foods, that's true. That like literally just look at history, look at science of what the most beneficial thing for our body is. But God also designed things for us to enjoy. And so he knows and he wants us to be able to enjoy foods that we like, whether that's ice cream, buffalo chicken dip, shout out to Aaron, or if we like crumble cookies, shout out to maybe one of the best franchises created ever.
That's true.
These things, we're not meant to restrict them from our lives, but if we're allowing ourselves margin to eat them while focusing primarily over majority being consistent with whole clean real foods, we're going to get those micro and macronutrients we need, and then also enjoy food. What it's going to lead to is back to what I originally said, sustainability. So Alex, I definitely agree with you. I think that we could dive really deep when it comes to eating clean, but we don't have time for that. We do have time for the third way that God designed our bodies.
Number three, God designed us to move often. Okay. I said move often. I did not say exercise, CrossFit, yoga, bar hit, or Orange Theory. Okay. But moving our body. Let me read this verse in Genesis really quick and then unpack it for 60 seconds. Okay. In Genesis, when God was creating, he said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky. Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Okay. So God literally instructed mankind to fill the earth and rule the earth, but we cannot fill or rule the earth over anything sitting on our butts. Okay. If you've ever gotten a glimpse of what a farmer actually has to do to maintain or rule his livestock or the fish or the birds or the livestock that he owns, you'll know how physically demanding it is. I have a good friend, Farmer Jeff, you know him, Trevor, that he owns about 100 cattle. It is very physically demanding, from the feeding, watering, corralling, mowing, moving, fixing, selling, all of the things just to maintain that. God gave us bodies that when we move, we can do that. We can fill the earth and subdue it because we're made in his image and we're made to do that. It's for us. And here's the great thing. The more we move, the more we improve. It's the science behind exercise, that the more we move in a safe, controlled way, our muscles are going to get better, our joints are going to get stronger, we're going to have more energy, our body adapts. Okay. I'm not saying, okay, everyone needs to walk to work, bike everywhere, never sit down anywhere. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm so glad that there's tractors that we don't have to pull oxen or you have to pull your own thing in your field. But what I am saying is that what God created from day one, humans just through technology's expanse has really, really changed what that is. And we just sit all day long. And no one's arguing with me on this, that the more you move, when you go on a 30-minute walk, when you play pickleball, when you push mow your yard yourself rather than having someone else do it, when you go play pickleball, when you go hiking with friends, when you do work out, you feel better. You sleep better. You have your metabolism's higher. You do it with other people, so the quality of relationships increase. Just the more you move, the more you improve. And God literally gave us bodies. When you look at the scientific anatomy of, like, for example, your legs, your ankle, your knee, your hip, it's anatomically designed to bear load and to literally move. So that's the sole function of our leg. Okay. So the more we move, the more we improve. Movement is medicine. God designed us to move. I can't harp on it enough.
Definitely see where that is an important piece to how God designed our body. Alex, what if I don't enjoy moving? Like, what if I just don't really enjoy having a physically active life? Not even just exercise. Maybe you could include that in there, but what if I just don't?
That's hard. Because it is such a foundational piece. I would encourage you to find something that you do enjoy, because there are so many outlets out there. It's not just CrossFit, Orange Theory, HIIT, walking, or biking. There are numerous ways to get the heart rate up. Maybe you like gardening. Maybe you like walking. Maybe you like Pilates, whatever that is. But my encouragement to you would be to find other people that are doing something active and just try. And the more you do, the more you're probably going to align with that community. And then those shared behaviors will start to become your behaviors. And here's the thing. If you don't enjoy it, that's okay. But there's this thing called discipline that will eventually lead to desire, which will eventually lead to delight. Discipline to desire to delight. When you're disciplined enough in one thing because you know you should do it, that period is short that's moving to desire, which you actually, okay, I feel like I want to do that because I'm in a groove, I'm in a rhythm, and then that desire turns into delight, actually finding joy in that. So give yourself grace in that discipline phase so that you can get to the desire and delight phase, because it's so important for sustainability.
Yeah, Alex, I think that's a great response. And listeners, I would only encourage another big thing, and we didn't really touch on it when it comes to like lack of motivation or just lack of desire or interest in being physically active or exercising. It's important to kind of recognize some of the risks when it comes to chronic health issues such as heart disease, diabetes, cancers, mental health. You could go into that realm as well. That choosing to not be active or live an active lifestyle presents for you. And I would challenge you to think about the bigger picture. And what I mean by the bigger picture is your ability to go, to live, to do, and what John 10:10 and God has for us, that abundant life,
Yeah.
whether that's with friends or with family. That's a great motivator too. Because at the end of the
Yes.
day, I'm not always going to be able to, for example, compete in the sport of CrossFit, but I want to be able to go and do as much as I can as long as God has me on this earth with my family, with my
Yes.
kids, hopefully one day, with the grandkids, hopefully one day. And that's a big motivator for me. And there's a lot of days where it's like, man, I don't really want to do it, but man, I'm gonna go down there because, like you said, discipline will lead to desire, which leads to delight. I think it's good.
Here's what I'll end with. Longevity impacts influence. When you can go the course, when you're the 60, 70, 80-year-old that is able to move and bike and play with their grandkids and still walk up flights of stairs and not be just contained or limited, your influence is better because you're stewarding your body and people look at you like, oh, hey, what are you doing differently? I want to do what that person's doing. And now you're able to shine the light even greater because your influence is there because your longevity has taken you. And that's how you do it. You move often. We continually move our bodies so that we can go the distance, so we can increase our influence and shine the light for the Lord. So that's what I'll end with.
That's good, AC. Give us your short takeaway from today's episode about how God designed our body.
Short takeaway and bottom line, 60 seconds. Here we go. God designed us back in Genesis. This is not an Alex thing. This is found in scripture that he designed us to sleep well and rest well, designed us to eat clean and move often. And here's why. This is not just a health thing. It's a far greater and deeper and better thing than just a health thing. Okay. If you don't remember anything else, I want you to know this. This is a stewardship thing, that if you consider yourself a Jesus follower, this is not a miscellaneous auxiliary nice to have. This is a mission critical stewardship thing, because the reason we take care of our bodies, the reason it's so important is because God loaned us one, and that these bodies are not our own. That if we want to be the best stewards of what God has given us, then we're not going to waste it. We're not going to fill it with toxins. We're not going to take it for granted. We want to be the best stewards so that we can love God and love other people greater. If our body is a limiter, that is limiting our influence and how we can go shine the light. So this is a stewardship thing, and I would just admonish all believers, say, hey, this isn't just a selfish thing or looking good in the mirror thing. Although those things will happen, this is a stewardship thing because the Holy Spirit literally dwells within our physical bodies, and I want to take the best care of it as I possibly can.
You know how we practice like 20 cal bike sprints per time?
Yes.
We're going to practice like 60, 90-second pitches per time and burpee penalties.
I was under 60 seconds.
I don't think that's true, but it was really good, and so that's why I wasn't going to cut you off.
Well, thank you.
Listeners, that is all that we have time for today, but we hope you enjoyed this first part to our 3-part mini-series on God's design for our health. Alex, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for coming to the studio. Thanks for bringing the good stuff. And as we like to say, mood and energy's high, so we hope you have a great week.
You're a legend.
See y'all.
Thanks, Trevor.